My lords, today I bring a report detailing what we are calling, internally at least, a scientific mishap. It would appear that upon exploration of an astral rift, the lead scientist, a Professor Philip Brainard, and his entire crew investigating have somehow managed to turn themselves into a sort of liquid life form. They have been quarantined on the Mars research facility while we performed tests. Fortunately, Dr. Brainard kept a record of the rift, codenamed the Fluid, and I shall detail it for you now. Our rift sphere has arrived submerged inside of a viscous reddish fluid. All around us drift large, disc-shaped blobs of more solid matter, but we have thus far avoided collision with them. A solid wall of semi-gelatinous material surrounds us on all sides, but we glide along easily enough. The rhythmic pulsing that we sense from within the rift is in sync with the harmonic frequency of the liquid around us. Every 3 seconds we are pushed forward with a rush of pressure driving us deeper into the fluid. Resisting the flow is taxing our engines. Clearly, given our circumstance, this is a fantastic opportunity to collect some samples. The appropriate apparatus could impede our navigation in the twisting tunnels, but nevertheless I ordered it so. After all, we need to understand what we are surrounded by. The sample collection apparatus has been trailing the vessel for several hours, but unfortunately we have now come to an abrupt halt. It seems that the sample apparatus has become lodged in a narrowing of the tunnel system. We attempted to free ourselves with intermittent bursts of propulsion, but the strength of the current has prevented us from making any meaningful progress. The safest option may be to simply cut the sample apparatus free and continue forward. However, it may be possible to preserve the sample by supplementing our engines with a charge of exotic gases. Given that we still don't understand what we are flying through, or rather, swimming through, gaining the samples will be valuable. Thus, I ordered that we supplement our propulsion with a charge of exotic gas, and I'm pleased to report that this was successful. We were able to rip the apparatus free from the tunnel wall, and we have since been able to recover the valuable samples. The initial study on them shall begin, but I suspect they might be beyond the equipment we have on board. Several days have now passed with little incident. The laminar flow along the tunnel walls has kept us well centered in our journey. The disc-shaped foreign bodies surrounding us are also caught within its flow. They gently drift and tumble past the sphere. We have witnessed no evidence of sentient life. In fact, our strongest supposition at this point is that we are inside of some unknown, supermassive organism. If our presence has been noticed by any natural defenses, we are yet to witness them. We now find ourselves in an enormous chamber. The walls of this chamber are lined with veiny protrusions. The chamber walls regularly expand and contract, forcing millions of litres of fluid through a single exit. As we hold our position, we discover a second entryway into the chamber. Trace fluids of crystalline matter are suspended within the fluid coming from the tunnel. The pressure of its flow is low enough that with some skillful navigating, this orifice can be explored, and as such, I ordered us in. On the far side of the orifice, we entered yet another cavity. This chamber dwarfed any other that we had seen thus far. Here, there were thin and delicately branching tendrils stretching out in every direction. They are also intricately woven together that it became difficult to proceed. The fluid in this environment is saturated with gases that have been easy for us to collect. Fighting through the current, we were able to squeeze into another offshoot from the previous chamber, and this time we emerged into a cavern of quivering crystals. The walls around us filtered fluid from every direction, causing a crystalline residue to be left behind. Suddenly, an amorphous blob the size of a starship was observed several hundred meters away. We attempted to view it from a distance, yet we somehow managed to draw its attention. It quickly moved towards us, and despite it not having any sort of mouth, our rift sphere was quickly absorbed through the entity's membrane. Its interior is composed mostly of a corrosive enzyme, and our hull is being digested as I speak. Our tactical officer recommended an immediate evacuation, but our biologists theorized that the enzymes could be neutralized by combining exotic gases and the fluid that we have at our disposal. I agreed with the biologist's assessment. This entire situation feels like we're inside a creature, and this single-celled organism could simply be some sort of defense. I ordered a release of the exotic gas in an attempt to neutralize the beast. And, while significant in size, the creature actually turned out to be remarkably primitive in its biology. Very soon after releasing our unique concoction of gases, its external membrane dissolved. No longer able to maintain cellular integrity, its internals were carried away into the surrounding currents until only the massive nucleus core remained. I ordered the collection of the object, and I'm pleased to report that it was successfully recovered. Remarkably, it does not appear to be unlike the nucleus of many single-celled organisms from our own dimension. Our speculation is that this creature was some sort of antibody or immune cell in the colossal network of tubes and fluid, and it identified us as a foreign threat, and thus attacked us. Perhaps we are literally inside some massive creature, and clearly our assumptions about the size of single-celled organisms needs to be readjusted. However, our vessel has been damaged by the encounter, and given that we have the fluid from the sample collector, and now this beast's core, I've pulled the anchor cable, and we will return back to normal space with our prizes. Our biologists aboard are eager to investigate what secrets they may contain. It is here, sadly, I must report my crew and I's failings. Despite our initial extraction with no fatalities, and our finding of a potential relic, this did not end well for us. Upon return to normal space, I set course for our science nexus in the Alpha Centauri system. This voyage would have taken us several months, so of course I allowed our science team aboard to begin research into what we had brought back with us. The nucleus was subjected to a series of rigorous tests. Initial analysis confirmed that it bore remarkable resemblance to the nuclei of single-celled organisms familiar to our own dimension, just like we thought. Yet, this one had a far more complex structure. It exhibited unique properties, such as the ability to adapt and restructure its internal composition when exposed to different stimuli. We speculated that this was the reason why it had survived in the hostile environment of the Rift for so long. However, these properties soon presented us with unexpected challenges. As our scientists attempted to probe deeper into the nucleus's genetic material, it responded in ways that we did not anticipate. We were subjecting it to a high-frequency energy pulse, intended to isolate and examine the core components. At this, the nucleus began to exhibit signs of autonomous behavior. It started to emit a faint, yet quite perceivable glow, and its internal structure began to shift and morph. At first, the changes were subtle. The liquid surrounding the nucleus, within the containment chamber, began to ripple and pulse in response to the nucleus's activity. The shifts seemed to correspond with the rhythmic pulsations that we had experienced from within the rift. Our biologists were fascinated by the development, mistaking it for a positive sign of a potential breakthrough in understanding the nucleus's functions. But as the hours passed, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The nucleus seemed to synchronize itself with the surrounding fluid and took control of its surroundings. Somehow, it enacted the surrounding liquid to crack the containment glass housing it, and in a matter of seconds, the containment chamber was breached as the liquid surged forth, cascading into the lab. To our horror, those scientists in close proximity to the spreading liquid found themselves unable to escape its reach. As the fluid engulfed them, they began to undergo a grotesque transformation. Their bodies were dissolved into the very substance that they had been studying, their consciousness somehow preserved within the vicious mass. The fluid, still appearingly controlled by the nucleus and infused with some sort of sentience, surged throughout the entire ship. The transformation did not stop with the initial victims. The liquid continued to expand and assimilated every living being aboard. Within hours, the entire ship was engulfed. Myself and my crew have now become amorphous liquid blobs. We are still in total control of our faculties, or at least I am, and most in my crew appear to be. But we no longer have bodies as we once knew them. We can reshape ourselves to some extent. I actually believe that we may be able to improve this ability with time and practice, reshaping ourselves, that is. The nucleus still appears to control the liquid that surges throughout the ship, though why we are transformed is entirely unclear. I speculate if we were supposed to be transformed into some sort of hive consciousness, but for whatever reason, it was incomplete or unsuccessful. But that is my only theory for why this nucleus attempted to do what it did. Despite everything, this fluidic feature may be an improvement upon the human form. Although we have barely touched the surface of our capabilities, I think we will find ourselves far better able to adapt to different environments than before. In this case, perhaps the flesh was weak, and we have become something more, despite the fact that this has clearly cost us our humanity somewhat. I recommend that we are picked up and escorted to a safe quarantine research facility. Although my crew are alive and well, I can't imagine what would happen should an entire planet of humans be affected by this liquid conversion. I assume it would go down quite poorly with the general population. Well, my lords, the Doctor and his crew are now safely locked away at the Mars Research Facility. I'd welcome your comments on what we should do with them now, and whether or not we should experiment with this device any further.